Well, have you ever wondered what an actual vaudeville performance sounded like circa 1910? You're about to find out.
There's an old curiosity shop. Every once in a while I go by there. Oh, the fond recollections that lie there in that old curiosity shop.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Scott from the Old Curiosity Shop, and I teased you last night with a little bit of a tune, and today we're going to hear a lot more from this old cylinder player. And that's actually what I'm going to talk to you about today. I think I have bought and sold 10 or 15 of these in my career. And the first one that I ever received, I was only 17 years old. And I was given one as a high school graduation gift from an older gentleman in my town. And my father and I got to tinkering with it, and he taught me all the mechanics and whatnot. And I was bitten by the bug. So this is an Edison cylinder player, or an Edison phonograph. It's what he called these machines, phonographs. Of course, he successfully recorded sound in the early 1870s, but Edison didn't really see the future of this machine and basically considered it a toy, a novelty, and pretty much gave up on it for the next 10 years and went to work on the light bulb. Thank goodness he did that. But from the early 1870s to the early 1880s, other inventors jumped in there and started improving and getting their own patents. So after about a decade of not fiddling with the phonograph at all, Edison goes back and comes up with marketable machines that are hand cranked, of course, as this one is. And because he's getting a lot of competition from Bell and Berliner and Johnson and all those others. But this is not meant to be a phonograph history video. I just want to talk about the machine. This one I was thrilled to find in the condition that it's in. This machine, actually, this one dates to about 1910 or 11. And as you can imagine, when these went out of fashion, when they went out of style and they weren't being played anymore, what happened to them? They went to the basement, the attic, or the barn. Well, if they go to the basement, they're going to rust. If they go to the barn, who knows what will happen out there. But if they go to the attic, they will usually survive pretty well if the grandchildren don't get up there and monkey with it. This is a machine that I feel fairly certain wound up in an attic because there wasn't a speck of rust on it. There was surface corrosion that needed to come off. But that's it. Nothing had been removed or added. No one had gotten a hold of it and destroyed it. And so it's been sitting around for 100 years or more, waiting to come back to life. And so it's an Edison home phonograph in an oak cabinet. And I will show you that when the lid is on, it looks just like your grandmother's sewing machine, right? Now the lid, there we go. And so there it is with the lid on it. And if you ever see one of these at a flea market or an antique store, please do not pick it up by the handle, because they will break right off usually, or oftentimes. This thing is extremely heavy. So it's nice to find an original lid in this condition. We'll go ahead and take the lid back off. It does lock in place, but right now I don't have the lock mechanism engaged. And we'll take a look at how oxidation takes place over time. Look at the inside of this oak cabinet, which is beautiful and smooth, and you can see the top, you can see the grain of the oak. And then when we come down here, it's much darker and flaky looking. The air has caused this shellac to become dark, like old pianos, right? The beautiful wood is under there, but that's what happens with age. This protected with the lid on it for all of those years is why we have differences in finishes. Now there's Edison's name right there. You can see what's called the alligator hide on the finish. Some guys are going to strip that off, guys or gals. I don't strip it off. I like it just the way that it is. I could lemon oil this up a little bit, but haven't done that yet. There's the Edison trademark. And as we review the outside of the machine, what we're going to see here is really nice condition. The pinstriping is good. It's worn away here where we would expect it to be worn away from everyone turning it on and off. This is to engage the motor here. And there's lots that can go wrong with these things. If you find one, don't put the crank in it and give it a whirl and see what it'll do. You've got to do restoration on these first. Everything has to be cleaned and oiled. This is a very old belt. I have not replaced the belt, but I'll eventually have to do that. This machine has the 2-minute and the 4-minute gearing, which we'll see right here. I have it set at 4 minutes because I'm playing blue amberol 4-minute cylinders, which look like this. Pull that out and show it to you in a minute. Cylinders are either 2 minutes long or 4 minutes long, and the blue amberol, which is actually a synthetic, it's a type of an early plastic that Edison made. They're going to be blue, and they'll usually have the number 4 and an M next to it to let you know that it's 4 minute right there. So that means this is a 4-minute cylinder. Okay, the opera rag, and this cylinder here, even though it says Columbia Gold molded, we can play that on this machine because we have a 4-minute reproducer. I haven't gotten to that yet. Alright, so we're going to play 4-minute cylinders. When these machines came out, cylinders were wax and they were only 2 minutes long. But you could buy a conversion kit if you had an older model, and to allow yourself to then play the 4-minute cylinders. If we flip this gear over, we see that we're now set for 2 minutes. But we'll leave it on 4. And this is a feed screw here, a very finely threaded feed screw. And what that does is when we engage the motor and we lower the reproducer, the guide here is threaded as well. And the threads here on the feed screw are going to pull the reproducer, gently guide the reproducer across the cylinder, so we're not actually dragging a needle across the cylinder the way a needle drags across a phonograph record. And then the reproducer is here. I'm not going to pull it out, but you can see there it's a model. It's a 4-minute Model H reproducer. If you're going to play 2-minute cylinders, you need a Model C reproducer. And you don't want to play a wax cylinder on this with this stylus because you'll grind it to pieces and ruin it. Sometimes folks don't realize that when they get these machines. You have to have the right cylinder and the right reproducer to get it to play. And then of course it's all acoustic. There's no electronics here, and the amplification is all from these witch's hat horns. The larger the horn acoustically, excuse me, the louder the music will be. This is a small brass horn, which we don't need a crane to support it. This is a larger horn, and you need a crane, a floor crane, or a crane that attaches to the machine itself, because this is too heavy, hence the place where a chain is hooked. And believe it or not, there's actually a horn that's even larger than that one, and I happen to have one. It is huge, and I'll show that to you later. But let's take a look at the inside at the motor, I'm going to quickly show you what I had to do. Now the outside was in good shape. Had to be cleaned and oiled and adjusted. Let's open it up. I think I can do this with this one hand. Bear with me for just a moment. It's very heavy. Okay, it locks in place. Now we're inside the machine, and I'm going to let you see what it does when it runs. Over here is the crankshaft, and this is the crank, and there's a hole on this side of the cabinet right there, right where the crank is going to go into the hole. It's threaded right here. We crank it up. This is the mainspring here inside this sort of tuna fish can looking thing. This whole machine had to be soaked and degreased. This grease hardens up over 100 years' time. So we have the power from the spring. It's governed here by what looks like a flyball governor. And right now I've got the machine turned on, but there's no energy because I don't have it cranked up, and the spring is already fully exhausted. So the 3 weights here, the problem on this machine is that one of the springs had broken, and that's pretty common. I've actually seen machines where people have taken tin cans, vegetable cans, tuna fish cans, you name it, and they cut their own spring in order to fix the governor, and it doesn't work very well. But I was able to get a spring to fix the governor, which is in good condition now. We'll watch it roll in a minute. And then the governor is going to allow the right amount of power to go through the gearing here, and we can see the belt begins to turn. It goes up through the machine, and it spins the feed screw. You put your cylinder on the mandrel, and off you go. You've got music. No electronics here. The inside of the cabinet, I had to clean that. Sometimes you'll find that a mouse family has lived in these. They can actually crawl through that little hole there, and it's very cozy to live down in here. You'll find all kinds of things inside of phonograph cabinets like this. Alright, I'm going to crank it up and let you see what it looks like. Be right back. Okay, I have given the crank a few turns, and now let's take a look at what the motor does when we engage it. I will turn it on. And what we can see here is very gradually the spring, which is down inside of this case, is beginning to unravel. Right? There's your basic physics, right? With the energy from the spring is governed by the governor, and we can adjust the governor if we want to. There's sort of a, what's the word, gnarled? That's not the right word. Little set screw right here. Let me get that to focus. All right. And this is what's going to change our speed. Now I have it set at the correct RPMs, so I'm not going to mess with it. But if I pull this lever up or down, watch what happens to the balls on the governor. See how they go in and out? They speed up as they fly out. What do you call that? Centrifugal force. And then when they return inward, the machine runs slower. The belt is and listen to that governor. That is a quiet. Sometimes these are noisy, but you hardly hear anything. Wonderful. And then on the top of the machine, we can see the belt comes up to the top of the machine. It is spinning the feed screw. The mandrel is flying around as it should. But the reproducer isn't going anywhere because I haven't engaged it yet. Let's see what happens when we engage the reproducer. Alright, it's now in place. But you don't hear any music because there's no cylinder, so the stylus under there is just floating. You can just barely see it. If there was a cylinder on there, we could hear it. But you can see get it focused. It is very gradually being pulled across at the correct RPMs for a 4-minute cylinder. Okay, let's close the lid, throw a cylinder on, and see what we get. Okay, I've already opened up the gate and slid the cylinder in place on the mandrel. This one doesn't slide all the way in because it's out of round, and you can get a reamer and ream the inside of the cylinders out. By that, if you'll see, the core of the cylinder is a composite, is a plaster. And you can see now that plaster will chip. You see the inside? There we go. It will expand with moisture, and then these are then, quote, out of round, and when they're out of round they don't slide on the mandrel evenly. We'll still be able to play this one and you'll be able to hear it. The tune is called Red Wing. Big hit. Your great-grandparents knew this tune. I'm telling you, they knew it. And we won't listen to the whole thing, but let's give it a whirl. Oh, the horn is in place. And we will engage the motor. And let's lower it in place, which is a little tricky because you sort of have to guess where the music starts. You see, there's no definite as to where you lower the reproducer down. Well, that was a little too far in. Wait a minute. It's a little tricky, these things. There we are. Give it a minute. Here we go. Well, have you ever wondered what an actual vaudeville performance sounded like circa 1910? You're about to find out. This is a wonderful Edison cylinder, blue Edison cylinder, originally released on wax and then dubbed when the Amberol cylinders came out a few years later. And if we look on the lid, we can see here this cylinder is entitled The Baseball Girl, Talking Miss Ray Cox. Now, who was Miss Ray Cox? Well, here's a picture of her. She was a vaudeville performer. She retired in 1920. Yes, she retired in 1920. I think she married, a movie executive or something like that. But she was known on the vaudeville stage for her athletic rendition of The Baseball Girl. And I believe this is the only recording she ever made. I think it was the original recording dates to 1905, 6, 7, something like that, just after the turn of the 20th century. And then released on this Edison cylinder. So this is the real thing, Miss Ray Cox. We're going to listen to her do her funny monologue called The Baseball Girl. Now it is 4 minutes long, and we're going to listen to the whole thing. And I have loved this for years and years and years, and I laugh every time I hear it. So I'm going to stop talking, and we're going to go back to the comedy of just after the turn of the century, well over 100 years ago. Let's see what it sounds like. You're in for a treat. Hold on. Wait for it.
Hello, Jack. How are you? It's a great day for the game, isn't it, huh? I wouldn't have missed it for the world, I should say not. Am I late? The seventh? Is it the seventh inning? What do you think of that? Oh, I wouldn't have missed any part of it, I should say not. Why, it's a bully day. There's certainly going to be one game. I know every player on the field. What a voice on that umpire. It's an awful thing, a voice like that. Oh, I do hate to go to a game when I don't like the umpire. It suddenly upsets me. I never could. That was no strike. That was no strike at all. I was looking right at the plate over there when it happened, and it was no strike. Don't tell me what a strike is. I know a strike when I say it the same as you do. I know a strike when I say it the same as anybody else. I come to the game, look at the game the same as anybody else. I have my opinion the same as anybody else. And I'll express it the same as anybody else. You get that right now. What do you think I come here for, Jack? To listen to you talking about it all the time? Are you such an expert authority on the subject? Is that the idea? Oh, I reckon they write books about you. I don't doubt it at all. Mr. Opinion. I never knew a man with so many opinions in all my life. You have more opinions than Roosevelt. Positively more. When there's a wedding, you think you're the bride, and when there's a funeral, you think you're the corpse. Say so. Come here and give an argument all the time. Every little point, have to have an argument. You come here to the game and you think it's a strike, and I come here to the game and I think it's no strike. What are we going to do about it? Let the game go on if it's no strike. Satisfies me. No strike? 2 strikes right off the reel, 2 strikes. What do you think of that, 2 strikes? After all that talk. Doesn't that make you say, what's that? Oh, he hit it. He hit it. Don't be gazing after it. Don't be gazing after it. Why must you look? Run. That's the thing to do. You don't have to look after it, do you? Must you run? That's what. Will you please go to third? Where you going? You're going backwards. Go on to first, will you? First is the place. First. Now you're a four-legged runner. Go to first, will you? First. 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 Oh, it's a foul. What do you think of that? What do you think of that? First thing of foul. Had to be a foul, of course, first thing. Suddenly you don't see any feathers flying. Yeah, dear, this is a pick sign. That's your answer on this position. There you get it. There's another strike. Is that what's going to happen, your strike? The umpire makes me sick. Yes, he does. Right, sir. Would you mind telling me what kind of language that is, please? Strike curve. He's a fine umpire. Strike curve. He don't care what he does to the King's English, does he? He'll be saying, scree-I-I, Meg. You can expect everything from that kind of an umpire. He makes me... Oh, he hit it a crack outside. And it's a good one, too. Don't be afraid to sound it's a good one. Don't be afraid. Don't stop at first. Come on a second now. You got a lot of time. You got a lot of time. Come on a second. Come on, come on. think of that. Why didn't the fool hang on to first? That's the only thing to do. He's a fine runner. Runs like a sausage. What kind of a player is he anyway, giving up a good hit like that? Wasn't that a wallop? I will say wallop. But I don't want to be a lady if I can't say wallop. And my speech curtails in a good manner. Bad enough to go to a ball game, but they don't have anything but strikes all the time. One right, strike. Is this a union of some kind here? Does everybody strike? We're in the wrong place. This is the car barn. The umpire makes me sick. I will talk about it. It says on the back of your ticket, you can roast the umpire. He has no friends. You don't understand baseball or any of its possibilities. Jack, I don't understand what you come to a game for. You waste your time coming here. You sit like a nobody. Ball. That ain't so bad, is it? Gee, they called the ball the pitcher last. That's the turn of the tide. It always happens after that. You watch it. This man on second will get him. Something good always happens when they go right. It happens. It happens. What's the use of ball if you're going to have a strike right on top of it? What's the use? Does it help your score? Does it improve your temper? This is a fine team. You take it from me, they ought to be all playing penalty wings. This is a three-eye strike down. That's a lot of illusion this time. Look at that, will you? Oh, that's a team. That's a difference. All around the diamond. All around. Making a home run. They haven't got the ball yet. All around. Look at him saying his prayers on second. Prayers on second. Come on in. Come on. You're not going to heaven this year. All around. Come home, you rummy. Come home. Great. And then home run. What do you think of that? Oh, that's amazing.
That is priceless to me. And, you know, did you catch all of the references when she said that the man had more opinions than Roosevelt? She wasn't talking about FDR. She was talking about Teddy. And you heard references to strikes. Remember, there were a lot of Union strikes just after the turn of the century. A lot of history inside of that. And baseball was new. Not brand new, but it certainly wasn't like it is today back in 1911. My goodness. I think it's hilarious and I love it. There you go, Miss Ray Cox, the baseball girl. Now, I promised you one last look at the largest horn that I have, and let me move it down here on the floor. So here's a small horn. There's a larger horn. And then down here we have this gigantic, I don't know, but can you see that? You probably can't even get the scale of it. But look how big this horn is. And that horn would hang from a great big crane, and we would get 3 times the volume. That horn is massive, and it's a filthy mess. I've got to get it all cleaned up. But one of these days I'll do that, and we'll play this old machine again. I hope you enjoyed this trip back to more than 100 years ago. I'm so glad you joined me. I'm Scott from the Old Curiosity Shop. We'll see you tomorrow night. So long for now.